Good evening, guys. Good evening. Welcome to the Ayurvedic Self-Care Challenge Day 1, first session, live session 1. Fantastic to kick this off live this evening. What we're talking about, over the next week, over the coming week, is, to me, just some of the most important concepts and content with regards to what we can do. What can we do evidentially that's going to help transform our health, our energy, our longevity, our vitality, our mood, our digestion, our sleep, our immunity, on and on and on and on. Okay, it's about putting into one place a framework, a blueprint for harnessing the best of Ayurveda in a way that's just going to make us, live out and be the very best versions of ourselves. So, it's an absolute privilege to have everyone here. A big welcome to everyone who's joining live. Gail, Becky, Glenda, Sam. I hope everyone's well. I hope everyone's had a lovely weekend, whatever you've been doing. So before we dive in, I'm just going to ask, and you guys are going to get sick of me asking this because I'm going to say it every session, but if everyone here could just give me a flurry, a barrage of emojis, just smiley faces, thumbs up, because it just helps get the video to the top of the Facebook page, so everyone who's trying to find it can find it just a little bit more easily. Okay, because there's always the algorithms are so weird, you never quite know who can find what, so it's just a good way of helping people. So that would be super helpful if everyone could do that. So today, this session, we try to keep the sessions around 20 to 30 minutes. Okay, I know everyone's busy, everyone's got things to do. So obviously very respectful of everyone's time. So tonight what I want to do is just provide an overview before we dive into the first Ayurvedic ritual. So over the next week, every session, we're going to explore one Ayurvedic ritual, why it works, how it works, the evidence behind it, why it's so important from the Ayurvedic and the Western perspective. But before we get into tonight's one, which is foundational to the very, very essence of our body. What we're going to talk about today is impacting upon not just our genes, so the deepest level of our body, but every single cell in your body is going to be impacted upon what we're talking about tonight. Okay, and that's circadian biology, circadian alignment, what Ayurveda calls dinacharya. Okay, and before we get into that, I just want to set the scene a little bit around why Ayurveda, why learning about Ayurveda, why being empowered with Ayurveda is so relevant right now, okay, where we are in the 21st century, okay. And before I do that, I want to say this Facebook group is very much the beating heart of these 3 weeks. If you've done one of our 3 weeks before, this platform is just the most helpful resource, because it allows you to ask questions, it allows you to share links, it allows you to engage with the whole community, to get help from Holly and I. It's a safe space. There's no stupid questions. Okay, one of the things I want to emphasize, feel free to ask whatever you want. If something's not clear, if it doesn't make sense, if you want to know how it applies to you, please ask. Okay, use this Facebook page to make sure you get everything out of these sessions that you need to harness the benefits of what we're going to be talking about. Because if you can do that, the sky is the limit. Okay. So, Ayurveda, before we get into the first ritual, like I say, Ayurveda provides us with such a unique opportunity, okay, such a profound opportunity. And Ayurveda for me is something that I've been very lucky to have been immersed in since I was very, very young. It's transformed my health, it's transformed and, looks after the health of myself, my family. I've seen it transform the lives of thousands of patients, over the years in our clinic, in workshops, in courses. And it's what I love about Ayurveda is it's a full blueprint, and that's what I really want to get across as we go through the coming week. Is that it's not one thing. Okay, to unleash the full power of Ayurveda in a way that's truly going to transform all of the things we aspire to with our health and our happiness. It's that sense of synergy. It's all the parts adding up are greater than the the total combined. Okay, and what do we all want? Because it doesn't matter where you are in the world, what your gender is, what you do for work, how old you are, there's a set of core qualities that everyone aspires to, okay? We all want to be healthy, okay? That's a human, kind of prerequisite, isn't it? We want to be healthy. We want to feel vital. We want to feel energized. We want to feel strong. We want to feel the very best versions of ourselves. We want to project that for as long as we can. We all aspire to having a really long life, okay? With the caveat that that long life is matched with health. So Ayurveda is about, helping people realize really high levels, almost unimaginable levels of health, and doing that for as long as possible. Ayurveda talks about, and the yogic sciences talk about 100 years. 100 years is our kind of birthright as a species. As a human, that's our birthright, and that's what the human longevity research is now telling us. So we all want health. We all want vibrant health. We all want to live a long life. So we've got more time to spend with those we love, that we've got more time doing the things we love, more time to experience all of the beauty and majesty of the world we're living in. Okay, we all want to be free of symptoms. Okay, and if we have got symptoms, we want to be able to effectively manage them, whether those are aches and pains, whether it's poor energy, whether it's a labeled disease, whether diabetes, cancer, heart disease. We all want to prevent those, and if we have got them, we want to manage them better. Okay, we all want to experience emotional bliss, don't we? We want to feel happy. We want to feel contented. We want to feel joyful. We want to feel at peace. Okay, these are emotions that I think psychological states that are so missing from our society, and the research supports that. And one of the things Ayurveda talks about is living in a body of yesteryear. We want to experience the level of health and happiness and joy and energy that we may be associated with our body 10, 15, 20 years ago. And these are all genuine realities. These are things that we can achieve. Not from the Ayurvedic perspective, yes. Okay, from the Ayurvedic, the whole aim of Ayurveda, the literal translation of Ayurveda is the science of life. But that's quite a limited or restricted translation. A better translation is the consciousness of optimal living. Okay, how do we engineer our life so that every part of it is optimal? Every single part of what makes you is thriving. Every part, physically, psychologically, emotionally, spiritually, everything. And Ayurveda, the whole aim of Ayurveda is to provide an all-encompassing blueprint for facilitating that. But there's a problem, okay? And the problem is that the Western world we live in today makes that very hard to do, I think. Okay, and it's something that my old mentor at the hospital used to talk about an awful lot. The culture, the world we live in now makes it very hard to thrive. Okay, actually the opposite is true, in as much as every day we're exposed to so many things that make it very easy to be ill, to be suboptimal in health. We're exposed to a barrage of processed foods, refined sugars. We've got circadian disruption, we've got poor sleep, we've got high stress, we've got physical inactivity, we've got endemic levels of not midlife crises, but people not having identity, not knowing what their meaning, their passion, their purpose in life is. And all of these things are linked to a poorer health status. They're linked to higher risks of disease. They're linked to shortened lifespan. They're linked to lower levels of emotional well-being, and on and on and on. And what I find so interesting about that is, we think back to the COVID years. Okay, what did we hear for 2.5 years? Pandemics, all we heard. But what's so interesting is that actually, if you look at the public health data, we've been in a pandemic for about 13 years, 12 or 13 years. Okay, we've been in a chronic disease pandemic. Okay, the rates of cancers, heart diseases, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, respiratory diseases, strokes, all of these kinds of things are pandemic. They are, as it stands now, we are operating in a pandemic level of chronic disease. Okay, not possibly or might be or one day, right now. That's the world we're living in. We've got disease pandemics, we've got we've got a pandemic of stress and anxiety, we've got a pandemic of fatigue and poor energy, we've got a pandemic problem with contentment and happiness, we've got a pandemic with diseases. We've been in this pandemic state for so long, and I'm sure that everyone here, if they look into their bigger network, friends, family, probably see that. I'm sure everyone here knows people that are falling into that cohort of, surviving rather than thriving. Okay, and it's so interesting that the COVID era got so much headlines around pandemics, but actually acute pandemics like a virus has got a lifespan. It's always going to end. But the chronic disease pandemic isn't. Okay, there's never going to be a vaccine for it, and that's why if you dive into the public health research now, okay, around the world, everyone is saying the same thing. Okay, is that the only way out of this pandemic state where people are getting sicker at a younger age and dying way younger than we should be, the only way out of this is self-care. Okay, the mantra doing the rounds in Western public health is we need to place self-care at the heart of healthcare. That's the be-all and end-all. Okay, why? Why is that the new paradigm of health? Because none of what we're going to talk about this week is anti-Western medicine. Okay, the beauty of Ayurveda is that it can be combined beautifully. The best system is where we take the best of conventional medicine and we combine it with the best of natural medicine. So none of what we're going to be talking about is anti-conventional medicine. Okay, but by its own definition, conventional medicine wasn't designed for the problems we're facing now. There's never going to be a drug, okay, that's going to overcome the rising rates of cancer and heart disease and Alzheimer's and diabetes and strokes. There's never going to be a surgical intervention that's going to do likewise. The only way out of this mess, the only way out of this chronic disease pandemic we're facing, is through self-care. Okay, it's through changing what we do, the behaviors and practices we do, the things we don't do, and lining those up so they're all stacking towards health. Okay, self-care has the capacity to completely transform health at the national level, at the societal level, at the family level, at the individual level. Not possibly, could do, might do. It's unequivocal. That's where the answer lies. And Ayurveda provides, when I was working at the hospital in research, there was a saying which was the West was looking east. Okay, the West understands that self-care is sacrosanct. The West understands that self-care is the best way out of this. What it doesn't have is a framework for delivering that. And what Ayurveda has is a blueprint for wrapping all of the most important aspects of self-care into one framework that we can deliver and embed and sustain easily and effortlessly and enjoyably in a way that can't but help transform our life. And to put that into perspective, and this is a statistic that I'm going to come back to quite a lot over the coming week, okay, is called the 80-20% ratio, okay, and it's something that once we finish tonight, to kind of ruminate on or meditate on. And what this means, what this data shows, and this is the most robust clinical research that we have, is that between 80 and 85% of all diseases, cancers, heart disease, Alzheimer's, everything, okay, are down to lifestyle choices, okay? They're down to the things we do and the things we don't do. Only about 15 to 20% of disease is down to genetic inevitability, okay? If we spin that's quite a negative statistic, okay? But if we spin that around on its head, what that means is that if we can subtly modify our life, not overhaul it, not radicalize it, subtle, progressive, evidence-based changes, day by day, month by month, we have the capacity to prevent around 85% of the diseases that are going to reduce our quality of life and our quantity of life. 85%. Okay, imagine if we opened the broadsheets tomorrow, and on the front page there was the headline: "New drug released. If you take it if you take this drug once a day, your chances of getting chronic disease is reduced by 80%." It would be the biggest selling drug in the history of medicine. Okay, but it's there, not in drug form or in prescription form, but in lifestyle form. Okay, this is the highest level of research. 80%. Think about how, and it's not just prevention, okay? If you're fit and well listening to this and you want to stay that way, that 80% applies to your ability to prevent those problems. If you're listening to this as someone who has an illness or is suffering with some kind of problem, that 80% is just as important in managing it, stabilizing it, and reversing it. So it doesn't matter where we fall on the spectrum of healthy to ill, this model applies, okay? And it's so easy just to skim past that and just to move on. But if you really meditate on that, 80%, okay, and then we can funnel that into the promises of Ayurveda, like longevity, living a longer, healthier life. The herbal medicines we're going to explore later in the week, okay, clinically proven to mobilize the mechanisms of human longevity. The circadian biology we're going to talk about in a minute. Likewise, we look at the concept of disease prevention. Something we're going to talk about a lot actually over the coming week is the trilogy of killers. There's 100 odd people here now. Big welcome everyone who joined after I welcomed everyone first time round. Of the 100 people here, about 90% of us are going to die of cancer, heart disease, or Alzheimer's. Okay, the trilogy of killers. And yet, the Ayurvedic approaches have published clinical evidence to show they have the ability to suppress the mechanisms of all of those diseases. We know the herbs, the dietary frameworks, etc., have anti-cancer actions, anti-heart disease actions, etc., etc. So in terms of extending lifespan, in terms of preventing disease, in terms of a really big part of Ayurveda, and I think it makes sense why, is about something called emotional mastery. Okay, it's no point living in a body that's robustly healthy if we're miserable, if we're sad, if we're anxious, if we're stressed, if we're overwhelmed, if we're low, if we're depressed. We need that emotional vitality. And Ayurveda has this discipline really called emotional mastery, which is about creating detachment. It's about creating contentment, peace, happiness that's inbuilt, that you can sustain irrespective of what's going on around you. And actually, those of you who are in the Ayurvedic Mentor, I can see loads of you who are, we've got a whole series there called Emotional Mastery, and it's about this blueprint, and it's one of the most watched series on the Ayurvedic Mentor because it's so integral to Ayurveda. So whether we're looking at physical health, longevity, genetic health, disease prevention, happiness, peace, contentment, on and on and on and on, Ayurveda has a evidence-based, time-tested blueprint for facilitating those goals. So whatever, I put up a post, didn't I, yesterday or the day before about why are you here? What's your why? And we had some beautiful responses that cover the full gamut of human experience, really. And it doesn't matter what you're here for, okay? It doesn't literally, whether it's prevention, whether it's management, whether it's physical health, mental health, Ayurveda can help, okay? That's not to say it's a cure-all, that it's magic, that you click your fingers and you're going to feel 18 again, but it can help you in a profound way. The aim of this week is to package up a framework for allowing you to do that in a way that's easy and sustainable and effortless, okay? And so every day this week, we're going to target a new topic, okay, which we call the Ayurvedic rituals. So there's 5 rituals. The first one is what we're talking about now, having just set the scene and laid the introduction, okay? Any questions that are coming up, I will answer them retrospectively, okay, just so that we don't overrun too much, okay? So if you're asking questions, I'm not ignoring them, okay? So the first Ayurvedic ritual, so the aim is by the end of the challenge, you've got 5 rituals. Okay, we've also got some bonus sessions that will actually carry through to the following week, okay, just to allow us to go into a bit more depth on a few things. But the 5 primary rituals, the first one tonight is what we call restorative rhythms and circadian medicine, okay. To me, those of you who know me, those of you who, have done previous courses with me or are in the Ayurvedic Mentor will know that this is my, I would stand on a soapbox and, talk about this all day. You're probably bored of me talking about this, but to my mind, the circadian alignment, what Ayurveda calls dinacharya, okay, the optimal daily routine, is one of the greatest gifts that Ayurveda offers the West. Okay, and the Western evidence supports this. So what we're talking about now, won the Nobel Prize for Medicine a couple of years ago. The highest upper echelon of clinical research was won, not for a drug therapy, not for a new surgical intervention, but for this, circadian biology. And, it comes down to, and the thing about this, so in Ayurveda it's called dinacharya, okay, you have optimal daily routine, but the key point here is that our circadian rhythm, okay, we have a circadian rhythm, which I'm sure a lot of people have heard of, an inbuilt 24-hour clock, okay? And we have, what the Nobel Prize was won for was the identification of genes. So we have something called our morning, daytime clock genes, and our evening nighttime clock genes. Okay, so our morning clock genes come on first thing in the morning, and that's the linchpin. I'm going to talk about how we mobilize that in a minute. When those clock genes come on, they control every single thing that has to happen in our body until nighttime to optimize health and prevent disease. Everything, trillions of functions. Okay, from immune regulation to heart rate regulation to blood pressure to sugar, everything that happens in the body in the daytime, in the waking hour, is regulated by these morning clock genes. Okay, once the sun begins to set, the morning clock genes turn off and the nighttime clock genes turn on, and they then control everything that happens in the body during the night to maintain health and prevent disease. Okay, particularly things like detoxification, the identification and destruction of nascent, cancer cells, bacteria, cardiovascular reset, all the things that only happen at nighttime. And then in the morning, they turn off and the morning clock genes turn on, and that's a 24-hour cycle. But the key point, which is why it won the Nobel Prize, is that they've now shown that there isn't one cell. So we've got 60, 70 trillion cells in our body, okay? And all health is where all the cells in the body are working optimally, because that means our organs are working properly and then our body's working properly. Every single cell in the body, how it's working, how well it's working, so therefore how well we feel, is exclusively wholly regulated and governed by the circadian clock. Every single cell, the functioning of your eye cell, how strong your immune system is, how well your liver is breaking down toxins, all of that, okay? The trigger to the behavior of every cell in the body is regulated by the circadian clock, without exception, okay? And that is unimaginably powerful. But the key point I want to emphasize is that there's only two options for us here, okay? There's no gray area. We are either in the hallowed state of circadian alignment. That is the foundation of health from what I understand from the research, okay? Circadian alignment or circadian misalignment or circadian dysfunction. There's no gray area between the two. So circadian alignment is where every cell in our body and all of our organ systems are working with our circadian clock. So we are aligned with our circadian clock. That is the foundation for health and disease prevention. Or we're in a state of circadian misalignment or circadian dysfunction, where our cells and organs are working in conflict with our 24-hour clock. Okay, and what governs that is a part of the brain. So in the hypothalamus in the brain, we have a little structure called the SCN, and that's our clock. The SCN is literally a ticking clock in our brain. Okay, that turns on in the morning, and that governs everything over the next 24 hours. So when we're thinking about circadian medicine, when we're thinking about dinacharya, when we're thinking about maintaining circadian alignment, it's the SCN in the brain that regulates that. And everyone would have experienced I'm assuming probably most people have experienced the extreme case of when that goes out of whack, on a flight. If you cross time zones, 4, 5, 6 hour plus flight, why is it that when you land, you've got a 60% higher chance of an infection in the next week? Why are you often constipated? Why do you feel tired and exhausted? Because you're out of circadian alignment. You're circadian misaligned because you've crossed time and date zones. Okay, that's the extreme version. But we can have less extreme versions staying in our own world, our own house, our own life. Okay, and this is the first ritual to be aware of. Okay, the single biggest thing, well, the only thing really that pulls the trigger every single day, it resets. Okay, on whether the coming day. So imagine now it's tomorrow morning. The thing that is going to allow you to either be in circadian alignment and therefore thriving, or in circadian misalignment and therefore struggling, is exposure to early morning light. Okay, so the first 90 minutes after sunrise. Okay, this is what won the Nobel Prize. So evolutionary speaking, we're obviously animals. So when we evolved, every other diurnal mammal, so every other daytime living mammal on the planet, wakes up with the sun and goes to bed with the sun. Okay, we're the same. Evolutionary speaking, we're the same. So that's how we've evolved. So the first 90 minutes after sunrise, Okay, there is a completely unique UVA, UVB, and infrared frequency. So the light emitted from the sun is completely unique. It doesn't matter if it's cloudy, raining, sunny. It doesn't make any difference to the frequency. Okay, if our eyes are exposed, if we expose our eyes to that frequency of light in the first 90 minutes after sunrise, that is what connects to the eye, the optic nerve takes it to the brain, and the SCN, the timekeeper, the clock in the brain, says, oh, okay, it's the start of a new day. And it turns on the clock genes, and that then optimizes the body over the next 24 hours. Okay, the whole clock, every day, the whole system is dependent exclusively on early morning light exposure. Okay, if we miss that, if our eyes aren't exposed to that sunlight, the SCN doesn't get the message. It doesn't get the trigger that the day has begun. And therefore particularly our immune system is suppressed. Our digestive system is poorly regulated. Our energy systems, our dopamine, our cardiac rhythms. You're going to feel that. You're going to feel that in your tired, your energy levels. You're going to feel it in your appetite, in your kind of resilience, your mood. You're going to feel that. It's like jet lag, but in extreme. Okay, so how do we facilitate that? Okay, so right now, so I just checked a minute ago. So where I am on the south coast, sunrise rather is 6:28. Okay, so that's quite an easy time. It's harder in summer because in summer the sun rises at say 5, which means you have to be exposing your eyes to sunlight before 6:30, which for a lot of people is quite early. Okay, but generally speaking, 6 a.m. is the kind of the optimal time for most people most of the time. Okay, because in summer you're going to catch the end of the sunrise, and in winter you're going to catch the period before it. In the middle of winter, sunrise is what, 7:40, 8ish. So Ayurveda has advocated since the beginning, for 5,000 years. One of the pillars, one of the foundations of health is being awake at or before 6 a.m. Okay, and what is so fascinating is the way that now dovetails with the most advanced Nobel Prize winning research. Okay, but the other thing around that is from the very Ayurvedic perspective, I'm sure some of you here would have heard of the doshas, the Vata, Pitta, Kapha. They're the foundation of Ayurveda. So 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. is called the Vata time of the day. Okay, and Vata is characterized by energy, vitality, get up and go. So if we're getting up before 6, it's called getting up with Vata, which means we experience those same qualities. We wake up with energy and vitality. If we sleep much past 6, then that's going to drop. Okay, and that is mirrored perfectly with something called the cortisol curve. So we all think of cortisol as this really bad stress hormone, which it can be. But cortisol is one of the most important hormones in the body because it works with the circadian rhythm. So we get one big cortisol spike every day. So cortisol starts secreting into the blood at around 4 in the morning. And for most people, most of the time peaks at about 6 in the morning. So if we're getting up when the cortisol is increasing between 5 and 6:30-ish, we're getting up when our body is flooded with a get up and go hormone. But if we start sleeping in much beyond about 7:30, cortisol starts plummeting. So we're trying to get up and get going as our get up and get going hormone is dropping. And there's been really fascinating clinical research with people who've got fatigue, ME, post-viral fatigue. If you get them up earlier, long term, they feel infinitely better. Their energy, their fatigue status, their immune status improves. And it's all saying the same thing, that our circadian alignment, our clock genes, our hormones, Vata, everything is dependent upon that early morning period. Okay, so but the key point here is we have to actually, it's not just being up and awake, we have to actually expose our eyes. So make sure we draw open the curtains, open the blinds, and try and spend, a really good practice is to, get up a little bit early maybe and have a cup of tea, looking out the window, okay, or opening the door and sitting outside if it's warmer or whatnot, but making sure we're not just getting up and running around the house with it all shut down and curtains shut, but actually we have to expose our retina to this UVA, UVB infrared. If we do that, the SCN starts the clock, and then everything, and they've done studies over 24-hour periods in circadian alignment compared to not in it, and the impacts upon your ability to prevent infections, to stabilize blood pressure, to better regulate blood sugar, to reduce inflammatory markers, to reducing arthritic symptoms, to increasing dopamine synthesis, reducing depression, increasing stamina. Literally goes on and on and on. The gains are all, we could talk for hours about this, but the bottom line is that virtually every function of the body is optimized when it's aligned with that clock, and that clock is triggered by early morning sunlight not sunlight, but light exposure. Okay, so your first ritual, and the reason I put this one first is because everything else is dependent upon it. Okay, if we're trying to meditate, if we're meditating in a body that's not circadian aligned, we're not going to get the full benefits. If we're taking our herbal medicines and we're not circadian aligned, we're not going to get the benefits. If we're eating a great diet, I was going to talk about it tonight, but we're going to overrun, so I'm going to save it. But we've also got something called circadian nutrition. When we eat is just as important as what we eat. If we put food into the body when our digestive system is not circadian trained, we are losing out on about 30 or 40% of our nutrient load. Okay, so we have to be aligned with our circadian rhythm. That is exclusively dependent upon exposing our retina and therefore our hypothalamus to early morning light. So the first ritual tomorrow, look at when you're getting up. Try perhaps to get up a little bit earlier, aiming for the 6 o'clock mark. Okay, because that's when, then by the time kind of 6:30 comes along, you're going to be fully awake. Hopefully all the curtains are open and you're going to be exposing yourself to that really magical, beautiful light around sunrise. And I'm sure everyone's experienced that, haven't we? There's give me a thumbs up if you agree, but there's a quality, a stillness, a magic, isn't there, to the early morning period that isn't mirrored, I don't think, at any other time of the day. Dusk is beautiful and sunset is beautiful, but that early morning period, what Ayurveda calls Brahma Mutra, the creator's hour, God's hour, is such a beautiful time to be awake. And, getting up a bit earlier, opening the curtains, exposing yourself to that, drinking a cup of tea or journaling or just daydreaming is just the most empowered start. Okay, so if you hypothetically didn't do that tomorrow and you analyzed your body, and then you hypothetically did do it and analyze your body, you would not be operating in the same body, okay, between one and the other. Okay, one body is going to be established for health and vitality, one is going to be established for disease and reduced vitality. So this is the linchpin, okay, which is why I wanted to talk about it first. Okay, so your first goal, your first ritual is to harness the power of circadian medicine by that early morning period. Okay, like I said, I can see loads of questions coming up. I'm not ignoring them. I will answer them retrospectively. Okay, if you're watching this on catch up or you've got questions retrospectively, please just let me know on the Facebook page. Okay, super grateful. To have 100+ people here is an absolute privilege. So I'm so grateful for you guys showing up and committing, and it means the world to me. So a super sincere thank you. And I look forward to tomorrow. We're back at 7 p.m. Okay, I'll be sharing some content tomorrow morning, and we've got some recipes and remedies to release, but our next live session is at 7 p.m. tomorrow, okay, which is a fundamental one. But all the other sessions, their success is dependent upon your body and my body being in circadian entrainment. It's not an optional extra. It is sacrosanct to health and longevity and disease management and disease prevention. Okay, so like I say, please use the Facebook group, inspire each other. Let's keep the energy high. Okay, let's make this a really powerful place for complete transformation. Any questions, let me know. But other than that, a massive thank you for being here. Have a lovely evening, and I will see you soon. Cheers, guys.